Something is breaking wide open right now, and if you blink, you are going to miss what might be the single biggest shift in American foreign policy since the Cold War ended. And I need y'all to sit down and really let this one soak in like rain on dry Texas caliche. Europe just told the United States of America to go pound sand. Not once, not twice. Spain shut its airspace to American military planes involved in the Iran operation. Italy turned American aircraft away from the base at Sigonella in Sicily while those planes were already in the air, already airborne, already en route, and Rome said, "Nope, not today, go on back home." France refused to let planes loaded with military supplies even pass over French territory on their way to the region. Poland told Washington it has zero plans to move a single one of its Patriot air defense batteries toward the Middle East. And the United Kingdom, one of our supposed closest cousins in the whole world, stood up and announced through its own prime minister that this is not their war and they will not be drawn in. That is Spain, Italy, France, Poland, and the United Kingdom all telling America no within the span of about 72 hours. That right there is not a disagreement. That is a coalition of folks who have been eating at our table for 80 years, and now they are complaining about the menu. Now here is the part that matters. The United States has not been asking these countries to send their own troops into combat. Nobody was asking Paris to put French boots on Iranian soil. The ask was simpler than that. Can we fly over your airspace? Can we land at a base that we have jointly operated and funded for decades? That is it. And the answer came back no. Think about that for a second, sitting out on your porch in the Texas heat. You go ask your neighbor if you can park in his driveway for one afternoon, the driveway you helped him build, and he slams the door in your face. That is what just happened on the world stage. And what did President Trump do when he got that answer? He did exactly what a man with a backbone does. He got on Truth Social and he told every single one of those countries point blank that if they cannot get jet fuel because the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted, the answer is simple. Buy energy from the United States because we have plenty of it, or go down to that strait yourself and take it. Now the TV pundits are clutching their pearls. They are falling over each other to tell you how inappropriate that language is. But out here where real people live, that is called telling the truth to somebody who needed to hear it. You want American protection, but you do not want American operations? That math does not add up, neighbor. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said it even plainer. He got on national television and said that if NATO means America defends Europe when Europe gets hit, but Europe gets to say no when America needs help, then that arrangement is going to have to be re-examined. He said there is no doubt about it. And then Trump went even further in an interview with a major British newspaper and said that pulling out of NATO is beyond reconsideration. That is not a threat tossed out in the heat of the moment. That is a man who has been watching this dynamic for his entire career, finally saying out loud what the numbers have been screaming for decades. Here is where those numbers come in, and I need you to pay attention, because this is where it gets uncomfortable for the Europeans. Back in the year 2014, only 3 NATO members out of 32 were meeting their own alliance's defense spending pledge. 3. The target was 2% of what their economy produces every year. A lot of these countries were sitting around 1.4%, while the United States was pushing over 3% and footing the bill for their protection like some kind of international security sugar daddy. Trump spent years hollering about this, getting mocked on every network, called reckless and irresponsible. And now, because he pushed and pushed and pushed again, all 32 members are expected to hit that 2% mark this year for the very first time in the history of the alliance. That did not happen by accident. That happened because one man from New York refused to let them keep freeloading. And the NATO Secretary General himself said it straight up that Trump revived an alliance that was sleepwalking toward irrelevance. But here is where it gets real rich in an ironic kind of way that would make a possum laugh. The same countries that just slammed the door on America's military request are the same countries that spent decades not even meeting the bare minimum spending commitment they agreed to. Spain, France, these are countries that got to spend their own tax money on social programs and generous benefits, while American taxpayers covered their defense. And now, when the bill comes due, when the moment arrives where the alliance is actually supposed to function as a two-way street, they fold up like a lawn chair in a hailstorm. They want Article 5 protection when Russia comes knocking. They want American missiles keeping their skies safe. But American planes need to use your runway for one afternoon, and suddenly you discover you have principles. That kind of selective loyalty does not sit right with me, and it sure does not sit right with the folks I talk to out here in the Lone Star State. Now, some people are going to say that these European nations have their own political pressures, that their populations do not support this conflict, and that they were never consulted before it started. And I understand that argument. But understanding an argument is not the same thing as thinking it justifies the behavior. Because here's the reality on the ground. 1/5 of all the oil that moves through the world passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Every country in Europe that depends on energy imports from that region, which is most of them, now has a direct economic interest in how this situation resolves. Oil prices have gone up 60% in some markets. Shipping is disrupted. The global supply chain does not care about your politics, and the disruption is going to outlast the conflict by a long stretch. France is reportedly in talks with about 35 countries to figure out a plan to reopen that waterway once the shooting stops. So France has time to organize a coalition of 35 nations about the aftermath, but they could not let a plane cross their airspace on the way there. You cannot have it both ways, partner, and Trump is not letting them have it both ways. He threatened to stop weapons deliveries to Ukraine if European nations do not join the coalition to reopen the strait. Some folks in the media reported that like it is a scandal. But think about what he is actually saying. He is saying that the United States has obligations too, and those obligations do not run in one direction forever. He is saying that a relationship without reciprocity is not a relationship, it is a handout. And America has been handing it out to Europe for so long that some of them forgot it was ever supposed to go both ways. What we are watching right now is not a crisis for America. It is a reckoning. A long overdue, honest accounting of who is paying for what and who is willing to stand when it costs something. Trump has been saying for years that NATO needed to be fair or it needed to be rethought. Europe laughed. The media said he was dangerous. And now those same countries are proving his point with their own actions, writing the argument for him in real time, in their own diplomatic cables and airspace closures and press conferences. Out here, we have a saying that a dog that will not hunt is still a dog you are feeding. And America has been feeding this particular dog for a real long time. Trump is just the first one in a generation willing to say it out loud and mean it.